My mother ignored me for years, favoring my cousins, and if I had $1 for every time my mom chose my cousins over me, I'd be a millionaire by now. And then, growing up, I was always in the background, an afterthought in my own family. My name's John, and if I had $1 for every time my mom, Olivia, chose my cousins over me, I'd be a millionaire by now. My cousins, Hunter and Ava, were practically celebrities in her eyes. Every school play they performed in, every science fair ribbon they won, and every little milestone, they were treated like royalty. Meanwhile, I'd be lucky if she remembered my birthday without Victoria, her sister and their mom, giving her a nudge. It started when I was little. I remember one Christmas when I was about 7. I'd been begging for a bike for months, dropping hints like a human-sized post-it note. When the day came, Hunter got the shiny new bike. I got socks. Olivia didn't even pretend to notice my disappointment. Hunter's been such a good boy this year, she gushed as he grinned and showed off his present. I didn't cry. I'd already learned by then that crying wouldn't get me anywhere. Instead, I forced a smile and told myself I'd save up for my own bike someday. As I got older, the favoritism became more blatant. Hunter was the golden child, Ava the little princess, and me? I was just the kid they tolerated because they had to. Family gatherings were always a nightmare. Victoria would brag about Hunter's straight A's or Ava's ballet trophies, while Olivia nodded along, acting like she'd personally coached them to success. If I so much as mentioned something I'd achieved, like the time I made the varsity basketball team, it was met with a polite nod and a quick change of subject. One dinner, when I was about 16, things came to a head. It was Thanksgiving, and as usual, Hunter and Ava were the stars of the show. After we'd eaten, Victoria pulled out her phone to show off pictures of Ava's latest recital. Olivia was glowing with pride, like Ava was her own daughter. I sat there, picking at my dessert, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. "John," my aunt said suddenly, probably out of pity, "how's school going?" "Good," I said, trying to sound enthusiastic. "I just got my report card. Straight A's this semester." "Really?" Victoria smiled, but before I could say more, Olivia chimed in. "Hunter's been working so hard on his college applications," she said, completely ignoring me. "He's got his sights set on Stanford. Isn't that amazing?" My chest tightened, but I forced myself to smile. "That's great." That night, I sat in my room, staring at the ceiling and wondering why I wasn't enough for her. What was so special about Hunter and Ava that she couldn't see me? I started to resent not just them, but Olivia too. I stopped trying to win her approval and focused on getting out of that house as soon as I could. By the time I turned 18, I'd saved enough money from part-time jobs to move into my own apartment. College was my escape, a fresh start where I didn't have to compete with anyone for attention. Olivia didn't even seem to notice when I left. I called occasionally, out of obligation more than anything, but our conversations were always brief and shallow. She'd tell me about Hunter's latest achievements or Ava's new boyfriend, and I'd nod along, waiting for the call to end. For years, I built my own life. I graduated college, landed a decent job, and met Chloe, my girlfriend. She was the first person who really made me feel seen. Chloe encouraged me to open up about my childhood, but I mostly kept those feelings bottled up. What was the point? Olivia had made her choice long ago, and I wasn't part of it. Then, about a month ago, I got a call that changed everything. It was Olivia. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "John," she said, her voice trembling, "it's Hunter. He's really sick. We need your help." For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Olivia never called me unless she needed something, and even then, it was usually something trivial. But this time, her desperation was palpable. "What do you mean?" I asked, my tone colder than I intended. "He needs a kidney transplant," she said. "The doctors say you might be a match." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to laugh, cry, and scream all at once. After years of being invisible, the only reason she wanted me around was because her precious Hunter needed me. Part of me wanted to hang up and walk away. But another part of me, one I didn't fully understand, wondered if this was my chance to finally prove my worth to her. "I'll think about it," I said, and hung up before she could respond. Now, here I am, standing at a crossroads. Do I help the family that treated me like an outsider? Or do I walk away and let them deal with the mess they created? I don't know what to do, but one thing's for sure. This is going to change everything. After Olivia's call, I spent the night staring at the ceiling, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I had spent my entire life being ignored by her, shoved aside in favor of Hunter and Ava. Now, suddenly, I was important, not because I was her son, but because I had something Hunter needed. Chloe noticed my mood immediately the next morning. She handed me a cup of coffee and sat across from me at the kitchen table. What's going on? You've been off since last night. I sighed, running my fingers through my hair. It's Olivia. She called. Chloe raised an eyebrow. Your mom called? That's rare. What did she want? She wants me to get tested to see if I'm a match for Hunter. He needs a kidney transplant. The words hung in the air between us. Chloe looked at me with a mix of sympathy and anger. So, after ignoring you for years, she just calls out of the blue and asks for your kidney? Pretty much, I muttered, staring into my coffee. I don't know what to do, Chloe. Part of me wants to tell her to go to hell, but what if I can help him? What if this is my chance to show her I'm not some afterthought? Chloe reached across the table and took my hand. John, you don't owe them anything. But if this is something you feel like you need to do, for yourself, not for her, then I'll support you. Her words stuck with me. Was I doing this for Hunter, for Olivia, or for some selfish desire to finally be seen? I didn't have an answer, but I knew I couldn't ignore the situation. The guilt of not helping would eat me alive. The next day, I called Olivia. She answered on the first ring, her voice trembling with relief. John, thank you for calling back. Don't thank me yet, I interrupted. I'm willing to get tested, but I'm not promising anything. That's more than enough, she said, her voice breaking. I can't thank you enough. I hung up before she could say more. Chloe drove me to the hospital that afternoon, offering quiet support as I filled out the paperwork and submitted to the initial blood tests. The whole process felt surreal, like I was living someone else's life. As I sat in the sterile hospital room, waiting for the nurse to take my blood, I couldn't help but wonder why Olivia had turned to me now. Was it pure desperation? Or was there something more she wasn't telling me? 2 days later, Olivia called again. You're a match, she said, her voice a mix of relief and urgency. John, this is a miracle. We can move forward with the transplant as soon as possible. Her words sent a chill down my spine. The idea of surgery, of giving up a piece of myself for Hunter, felt overwhelming. But before I could respond, she added, I know you must have questions, and I want to answer them. Can we meet? Please. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a small coffee shop near my apartment. Olivia looked older than I remembered, her face lined with worry. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding my gaze. John, she began, I know I haven't been the best mother to you. That's putting it lightly, I said, unable to hide the bitterness in my voice. She winced but nodded. You're right. I've made mistakes, so many mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right. Hunter he's like a son to me. I can't lose him. Her words stung. So, you're willing to lose me, but not him? That's not what I meant, she said quickly, her eyes pleading. I love you, John. I've always loved you. I didn't know how to show it. I scoffed. You didn't know how to show it? That's your excuse? Olivia, you've spent my entire life making me feel like I didn't matter. I know, she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. And I'm sorry. But please, John, don't punish Hunter for my mistakes. He's innocent in all this. Her words hit a nerve. Hunter had never been cruel to me, but he'd never gone out of his way to include me either. We were strangers, really, bound only by blood and circumstance. Did I owe him anything? Did I owe Olivia anything? I'll think about it, I said finally, standing to leave. Over the next few days, I wrestled with my decision. Chloe and my best friend, Mason, offered their perspectives, but ultimately, it came down to what I could live with. In the end, I decided to go through with the transplant, not for Olivia, not for Hunter, but because I didn't want to carry the guilt of walking away. The day of the surgery loomed closer, and Olivia became increasingly involved in my life. She called every day, checking in, asking how I was feeling, and thanking me profusely. At first, I thought her attention was genuine, but as the surgery date approached, I began to sense a strange tension in her voice, like she was holding something back. 2 nights before the procedure, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Olivia's sudden interest in my life, and the way she had framed Hunter's illness as a miracle that brought us together. Something didn't sit right. I decided to look through some old family photos, hoping to find answers, or at least some semblance of clarity. As I flipped through the dusty album, a photo fell out. It was of Olivia and Victoria, standing side by side with Hunter as a baby. Olivia was holding him, her expression soft and maternal. At first, I thought nothing of it, but then I noticed the date written on the back, April 2001. Hunter had been born in June 2001. Why was Olivia holding a newborn 2 months before his official birth date? A chill ran down my spine as a thought crossed my mind, one I couldn't shake. Could Hunter be more than just my cousin? I called Mason, unable to keep my suspicions to myself. Do you think it's possible Hunter is not just my cousin? Mason was silent for a moment. It's a stretch, man, but it's not impossible. Families have secrets. Maybe you should ask Olivia, but I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. Instead, I filed the thought away, focusing on the surgery ahead. Still, the seed of doubt had been planted, and I couldn't help but wonder. Was there more to this story than Olivia was letting on? The next day, I arrived at the hospital, ready for the procedure. As I lay in the pre-op room, staring at the sterile white ceiling, I made a promise to myself. If I was going to give up a piece of myself for this family, I deserved the truth, no matter how ugly it might be. The surgery went smoothly, or so the doctors told me. When I woke up, groggy and sore, the first face I saw was Chloe's. She smiled softly and squeezed my hand. "You did it, John. You're amazing." Her words barely registered through the haze of painkillers, but I managed a weak smile. "How's Hunter?" "He's stable," Chloe said. "The doctors say his body is responding well to the kidney. Olivia and Victoria are with him now." Of course they were. I should have felt relief that the transplant had been successful, but all I felt was a gnawing emptiness. I had done my part, given up a literal piece of myself, and yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still an outsider in my own family. And then there was the question that had been haunting me since I found that photo. Was Hunter really my cousin? 2 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Olivia offered to let me recover at her house, but I declined. The thought of being under her roof, surrounded by the constant reminders of her favoritism, was too much to bear. Chloe brought me home, doting on me like the angel she was, but even her warmth couldn't quiet the storm brewing in my mind. That night, as Chloe slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the events of the past few weeks. Something about Olivia's desperation, her sudden attention, and that photo didn't add up. If I wanted answers, I needed to go digging. The next morning, I called Mason. "I need your help," I said, my voice still hoarse from the surgery. "Whatever you need, man." "What's up?" I explained the situation, telling him about the photo and my suspicions. Mason didn't hesitate. "Let's dig into this. If there's a skeleton in Olivia's closet, we'll find it." We started with the photo. I scanned it and sent it to Mason, who had a knack for noticing details most people overlooked. He called me back an hour later. "Did you see the bracelet Olivia's wearing in the picture?" "What about it?" "It's one of those hospital ID bracelets, and it's dated April 2001. My heart skipped a beat. "Are you saying?" "I'm saying Olivia was in the hospital around the same time Hunter was supposedly born." The implications hit me like a freight train. If Olivia had been in the hospital before Hunter's birth, could it mean she was there for his delivery? Could Hunter actually be her son, not Victoria's? The idea seemed impossible, yet the evidence was stacking up. The next step was confronting Olivia. I waited until Chloe was out for the afternoon, not wanting her to witness the inevitable fallout. When Olivia answered my call, I wasted no time. "We need to talk." "Of course, John," she said, her tone overly eager. "What's on your mind?" I didn't mince words. "I found a photo of you holding Hunter as a baby. You were wearing a hospital bracelet, and the date doesn't add up. I need to know the truth. The silence on the other end was deafening. For a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she sighed, a deep, shaky sound that sent a chill down my spine. John, she began, her voice trembling. This isn't something I ever wanted you to know. Know what? I pressed, my frustration boiling over. That Hunter is your son? That you lied to me my whole life? It's complicated, she said weakly. It's not that complicated, Olivia. Either he's your son, or he isn't. Another long silence. Finally, she spoke. Yes, Hunter is my son. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I sank into the couch, my mind racing. Why? Why did you lie? Why did you treat me like I didn't exist while giving him everything? Tears filled her voice as she tried to explain. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I was young and scared. Victoria and Daniel, your father, convinced me it would be better if Hunter was raised as Victoria's son. She couldn't have children of her own, and I wasn't ready to be a mother again. Her words barely registered. Again? What are you talking about? There was another pause, and then Olivia dropped the second bombshell. John, you and Hunter are brothers. For a moment, the world seemed to tilt on its axis. I clutched the phone, struggling to process what I just heard. Brothers? How is that possible? How could she keep something like this from me? You're lying, I said, my voice shaking. This doesn't make any sense. It's the truth, Olivia insisted. Your father, he and I had an affair while I was still married to your stepfather. You were the result, and then, years later, so was Hunter. I thought giving Hunter to Victoria would protect all of us, but I see now it only caused more pain. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My whole life had been a lie. Olivia's neglect, her favoritism, her obsession with Hunter. It all made sense now, but it didn't make it any easier to stomach. What about my father? I demanded. Did he know? Yes, Olivia admitted. Daniel knew. He was the one who pushed me to let Victoria adopt Hunter. He thought it would be easier for everyone. Easier for everyone. I thought bitterly. Except for me. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't think about anything except the tangled mess that was my family. Chloe tried to comfort me, but even she couldn't break through the wall I'd built around myself. Finally, Mason convinced me to meet him for a drink. You can't keep this bottled up, man, he said as we sat in the corner of a dimly lit bar. You've got to figure out what you want to do next. What's there to do? I said, staring into my glass. The truth is out, but it doesn't change anything. Olivia still chose Hunter over me. She still treated me like I didn't matter. But now you know why, Mason pointed out. Maybe this is your chance to finally get some closure. Closure. The word felt hollow, but Mason had a point. If I was going to move forward, I needed to confront not just Olivia, but Hunter too. He deserved to know the truth, didn't he? A week later, I sat across from Hunter in the same coffee shop where I'd confronted Olivia. He looked pale and tired from the surgery, but his smile was genuine. John, I can't thank you enough for what you did. You saved my life. I nodded, my stomach twisting. There's something I need to tell you, Hunter. Something about us, about our family. He frowned, his expression shifting from gratitude to confusion. What is it? I took a deep breath, bracing myself. Hunter, you're not just my cousin. You're my brother. Hunter's jaw dropped. What are you talking about? I told him everything. Olivia, Victoria, the adoption, the lies. By the time I finished, his face was a mixture of shock and anger. I don't even know what to say, he stammered. Neither do I admitted. But you deserve to know the truth. For the first time in our lives, we sat together, not as rivals or strangers, but as brothers trying to make sense of the mess our parents had created. It was messy and painful, but it was also the first step towards something new, something real. The days following my revelation to Hunter were filled with awkward silences and half-finished conversations. He and I didn't know how to act around each other, and honestly, I couldn't blame him. How do you process the fact that the person you've seen as a distant cousin your entire life is actually your brother? Olivia tried to insert herself into the situation, calling me almost daily. I ignored most of her attempts, letting her voicemails pile up. She left long, rambling messages, full of apologies and explanations, but none of it made a difference. Her words couldn't undo the years of neglect or erase the pain of discovering the truth. Chloe encouraged me to at least hear her out, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. Hunter, on the other hand, was different. He seemed genuinely eager to build a relationship with me, and part of me wanted that too. But every time we talked, I felt the weight of Olivia's choices pressing down on me. Could I separate my feelings about her from my relationship with Hunter? Did I even want to try? One evening, about 2 weeks after the surgery, I got a call from Victoria. It was the first time she'd reached out to me directly since the transplant, and I wasn't sure what to expect. "John," she began, her tone unusually formal. "I wanted to thank you for what you did for Hunter. You saved his life, and I'll always be grateful for that." "Thanks," I said awkwardly, unsure where this was going. "But there's something else I need to say," she continued, her voice tightening. "Something you deserve to know." I stiffened. After the bombshell Olivia had dropped, I wasn't sure I could handle more revelations. "What is it?" Victoria sighed, and for a moment, I thought she might hang up. But then she said, "Hunter doesn't know everything about Olivia, and I think you should hear it from me before you confront her again." I didn't reply, too stunned to form words. Victoria took my silence as permission to continue. "When Olivia gave birth to Hunter, I was the one who was there for her," she said. "Your father wasn't in the picture, at least not for her. He was with me." My blood ran cold. "What are you saying, Victoria?" "What I'm saying," she said carefully, "is that Olivia wasn't the only one keeping secrets. Daniel wasn't just Olivia's lover. He was my husband. And he's Hunter's father." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. My mind reeled as I tried to process what she was saying. Not only was Hunter my brother, but he was also my father's son with Victoria? That made us. I didn't even know. Half-brothers? Cousins? Both? "Why are you telling me this now?" I managed to choke out. "Because you deserve to know the truth," Victoria said firmly. "I didn't want you to think Olivia was the only one to blame for this mess. We all played a part in it." Her words hung in the air long after she hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, feeling like the ground had been ripped out from under me. My entire family, every single person, had been lying to me my whole life. And now, I was supposed to pick up the pieces and move forward? How was that even possible? The next day, I finally agreed to meet Olivia. I couldn't keep avoiding her, not with everything I'd just learned. We met at her house, a place I hadn't set foot in since I moved out years ago. Walking through the front door felt surreal, like stepping into a time capsule of my childhood. The same old furniture, the same faded photos of Hunter and Ava on the walls. No pictures of me, of course. Olivia greeted me nervously, wringing her hands as she led me to the living room. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice trembling. "Don't thank me yet," I said coldly. "I'm only here because I need answers." She nodded, sitting down across from me. "Ask me anything," she said. "I'll tell you the truth. I owe you that much." I didn't hold back. "Why didn't you tell me Hunter was my brother? Why didn't you tell him? And why the hell did you let Victoria and Daniel convince you to lie to both of us?" Olivia flinched at my tone, but she didn't shy away. "I was scared, John. Scared of losing everything. Your father and I, we made so many mistakes. When I found out I was pregnant with Hunter, I thought giving him to Victoria was the only way to protect him. To protect you. Protect me?" I scoffed. "You think hiding my brother from me protected me?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I know it doesn't make sense, but at the time, it felt like the only option. Victoria couldn't have children, and she and Daniel were desperate for a family. I thought it would be better for everyone if Hunter was theirs. And what about me?" I demanded. "You spent my entire life treating me like I didn't matter. Like I wasn't even your son." Her face crumpled. "I know," she whispered. "I know I failed you, John. I was so consumed by guilt. Guilt over what I'd done. Guilt over the way I let Victoria raise Hunter, that I couldn't be the mother you deserved. And for that, I am so sorry." Her apology felt hollow, but I could see the sincerity in her eyes. For the first time, I realized how broken Olivia was. She wasn't just the mother who had ignored me. She was a deeply flawed, deeply human woman who had made terrible choices and was now trying to live with the consequences. After our conversation, I left Olivia's house feeling more conflicted than ever. Part of me wanted to forgive her, to let go of the anger and start fresh. But another part of me, an angrier, more wounded part, wanted to walk away and never look back. That night, I called Hunter. "We need to talk," I said. We met at a park near his house, sitting on a bench under the dim glow of a street lamp. I told him everything about Olivia, about Victoria, and about our father. He listened in stunned silence, his face a mask of disbelief. "So, let me get this straight," he said finally. "Olivia is my mom, but Victoria raised me as hers. And Daniel, he's both of our fathers?" "Yeah," I said, my voice heavy. "That's the gist of it." Hunter laughed bitterly. "This family is a goddamn soap opera." I couldn't help but laugh too, despite the weight of the situation. "Tell me about it." For the first time, I saw Hunter as more than just the golden boy who had always overshadowed me. He was as much a victim of Olivia and Victoria's lies as I was. And maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move forward together. The next few weeks were a blur of difficult conversations and tentative steps toward healing. Olivia continued to reach out, trying to mend our relationship. Hunter and I started spending more time together, slowly building a bond that felt both strange and natural. But the wounds were still fresh, and the scars ran deep. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive Olivia, or if I even wanted to. All I knew was that, for the first time in my life, I wasn't invisible. And that was a start. Over the following months, life began to settle into a strange new rhythm. The transplant had left both Hunter and me physically weakened, but emotionally, we were navigating entirely different terrain. Hunter was surprisingly proactive about building a relationship with me, which was refreshing, if not a little awkward at first. Olivia, on the other hand, was a constant, overbearing presence, desperate to repair the bridge she'd spent years setting on fire. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the one carrying the emotional weight of our family's mess. Every conversation with Olivia felt like walking on a tightrope. Every glance from Hunter carried the shadow of revelations neither of us had fully processed. And then there was Victoria, who seemed eager to act as though nothing had changed, insisting on family dinners that only underscored how fractured we really were. One evening, Hunter called me out of the blue. His voice was hesitant, but there was something else there too, something fragile and raw. "John," he said, "I've been thinking a lot about everything. About us, about Olivia and Victoria. I feel like we've been handed this mess, and I don't know what to do with it." "Join the club," I said, my tone half joking. "I've been trying to figure that out for months." "I know," he admitted, "but I think maybe we need to talk to Olivia together. Really talk. Get everything out in the open." The thought of sitting down with Olivia again made my stomach churn. I had been avoiding her as much as possible, sticking to short, polite phone calls and occasional visits that felt more like obligations than real attempts at connection. But Hunter was right. We couldn't keep tiptoeing around the truth forever. We met at Olivia's house the following weekend. Chloe came with me, offering quiet support as always, but she stayed behind in the car, sensing that this was something I needed to face on my own. When I walked in, the smell of coffee filled the air, but it did nothing to ease the tension in my chest. Olivia greeted us with a nervous smile, her hands fluttering as she motioned for us to sit. Hunter and I exchanged a glance before settling onto the worn couch. Olivia sat across from us, wringing her hands like she was preparing for a trial. "I'm glad you both came," she began, her voice trembling. "I know I've asked for your forgiveness, but I also know I haven't earned it yet. I want to do whatever it takes to make things right." Hunter leaned forward, his expression intense. "Mom," he hesitated, as if testing the word on his tongue. "Why didn't you ever tell me? Why did you let me grow up believing Victoria was my mother?" Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Because I thought it was the right thing to do," she said. "Victoria couldn't have children, and she wanted a family so badly. At the time, it felt like the best way to protect you. But I see now how wrong I was. I robbed you of the truth, and I robbed John of a brother." Her gaze shifted to me, and I felt a pang of something I couldn't quite name. Anger, sadness, maybe even pity. And you, John, she continued, I know I failed you in ways I can never undo. I was so consumed by guilt and fear that I couldn't be the mother you needed. But I want to be better. I want to be there for you now, if you'll let me. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to unleash years of pent-up resentment and hurt. But another part of me, the part that had spent my childhood yearning for her attention, wanted to believe her. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said finally, my voice quiet but firm. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I'm willing to try. For Hunter's sake. Hunter nodded, his expression a mixture of relief and determination. I want us to move forward too. But that means no more secrets. No more lies. Olivia nodded, her tears spilling over. No more lies, she promised. From now on, everything is out in the open. Over the next few weeks, things slowly began to change. Olivia made a genuine effort to be present in my life, calling to check on me and inviting me to dinners where I was finally treated as more than an afterthought. It wasn't perfect, far from it, but it was a start. Hunter and I continued to rebuild our relationship as well. We started meeting up regularly, sharing beers and stories that felt like catching up with a long-lost friend. He even joined Chloe and me for a weekend hike, where we laughed about how neither of us was remotely athletic enough to keep up with her. But despite the progress, there were still moments of doubt. Every now and then, I would catch myself questioning Olivia's motives, wondering if her newfound dedication was genuine or just another attempt to ease her guilt. And then there was Victoria, who remained an enigma, hovering on the edges of our lives like a shadow that refused to fade. One night, as I was closing up the office late, I got an unexpected call from Victoria. I debated ignoring it, but decided to answer. John, she said, her voice calm but urgent. I need to talk to you. I sighed. What is it, Victoria? It's about Olivia, she said. There's something you don't know. My patience snapped. Of course there is, I said bitterly. That's the theme of this family, isn't it? Secrets and lies. This is different, Victoria insisted. It's about why she gave Hunter to me. It wasn't just guilt. It was because of Daniel. Her words sent a chill down my spine. What about him? Daniel threatened her, Victoria said. He told her that if she didn't let me raise Hunter, he would leave all of us. He was afraid that if the truth came out, it would destroy his reputation. I sank into my chair, the weight of her words pressing down on me. So, she gave up her son to keep the peace? Yes, Victoria said softly. I'm not telling you this to defend her, but I thought you should know. Olivia was trapped in her own way. I hung up without replying, my mind spinning. For so long, I had seen Olivia as the villain in my story, the mother who abandoned me emotionally while pouring all her love into Hunter. But now I saw her as something else, a flawed, broken woman who had been forced to make impossible choices. The next day, I visited Olivia. She was surprised to see me but welcomed me in with a tentative smile. We sat in her living room, the silence stretching between us. Victoria told me about Daniel, I said finally. About how he forced you to give up Hunter. Olivia's face crumpled, and she nodded. It doesn't excuse what I did, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But yes, it's true. I was trying to protect all of us, but in the end, I only hurt you. For the first time, I saw her not as the cold, distant figure of my childhood, but as a person, a deeply flawed, deeply human person who had made terrible mistakes. And in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness wasn't about absolving her of her sins. It was about freeing myself from the weight of carrying them. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive you completely, I said, my voice steady, but I'm willing to try. For my sake, not yours. Olivia nodded, tears streaming down her face. That's all I can ask for. In the months that followed, I worked to rebuild my life on my terms. My relationship with Hunter grew stronger, and Olivia became a part of my life in a way she never had before. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. As for me, I finally let go of the anger that had defined so much of my life. I wasn't just Olivia's son or Hunter's brother. I was John. a man who had faced the truth of his past and come out stronger on the other side. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.